Hey everybody, it's Pete. Good morning. Welcome to a new episode of today's Best Stock Picks. It is Thursday morning, January 14th, 2021. Biden speaking today on stimulus package. Obviously going to be talking about COVID, which seems to be getting worse, new strands coming out. Numbers are actually really pretty horrific. And despite that, the market is kind of still drifting. We're not seeing any selling yet. So the question right now is, are we in a pause before we explode again? You know, if you're a regular subscriber to the channel, oh, by the way, if you find these videos helpful, definitely subscribe and give us a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. But if you're a regular subscriber of the channel, you know that one of the easiest way to identify when the market has attention on a stock, when it's persistent attention, is when we get follow through. So you often hear us talk about a push and a pause, a push and a pause. You know, in the context that we'd love to keep things simple. Are we right now in a pause before we explode again? And really, volume kind of tells that story when you're really getting into and reading the tape and understanding that price action and volume syncing together. When you pause on lighter volume, that tends to mean that you follow through because nothing's changed. When you push up and pause or go down and pause, either way, after a move and pause, if that move is on heavier volume where you kind of have churning, that traditionally in classic tape reading means that you're going to get a reversal. So what we're really looking for right now in some of the bigger stocks that we're trading, what we're looking for specifically in some of the indices is, are we experiencing a continuation pattern, or are we seeing what many might call distribution? Now, here's a big thing. It's gotten harder to determine that. You really need to have an advanced eye because there's a lot more hedging going on right now. There's a lot more other types of trading going on right now that are not necessarily getting short as much as they are managing new positions in exchange for hedging other ones. So you really need to learn how to do it, but you still need to understand that context of what I just said. It's an important trading lesson. So just think about this. If you have a push and a pause, what does the volume look like during that pause? Sometimes the clues are really obvious. For example, in VRM, a trade that we had a couple of weeks ago, CrowdStrike a little bit earlier in the year, where it just jumps out and is screaming at you. And then you make some trades after the fact. But again, we have Biden's talk today. Has the market waited for the impeachment? Has the market waited for this talk? Or is the market just tired as it's sitting at all-time highs? We've been doing a great job of finding some really good sector rotation, finding some new ideas on a daily basis. Sector rotation, more often than not, is actually something that doesn't really happen from one day to the next. But with today's electronic trading, with so many people trading, I don't think that there's ever been a better time to actually be an active trader. In the boot camp, I've actually been calling it a glorious time to be a trader because of the lower commissions, the fast moves, the obvious action every single day, every single week that we're getting. At this point, it's really just a question of managing risk and being smart and managing that downside. We're actually going to talk a little bit about Ark Investments today. Cathie Woods, they just filed for another ETF. And if you haven't heard, she's probably one of the hottest money managers in the world right now, if not the hottest money manager in the world. So we're going to take a look at what happened and how that's going to affect one of the stocks we're going to be looking at today. I'm also going to take a look at FUBO, a stock that we mentioned yesterday, and the difference between having a setup versus having an entry signal. It's one of the biggest problems that newer members of the boot camp come in and they see the ideas and they immediately buy it, as opposed to finding a spot that makes sense where you could manage risk and you get some proof from the market that it's moving in your favor. One of the biggest things we talk about is very simply how long has the market, how long has the smart money been doing what you're going to piggyback? So in other words, is it moving for 1 day? Is it moving for 2 days, 2 weeks? The answer to that question is really where conviction comes from, which also gives you the clues about how soon you get into new ideas, also how you manage the trade from a position perspective. So in other words, do you go in with your full share size because it's super obvious, has room to go and you could manage risk? Or has the move just started and do you work the order a little bit because you don't have a lot of proof yet from the market? When I say proof, I mean feedback and price action. So we're going to head over to take a look at our ideas for the day. So as I said, where futures are kind of neutral right now. We'll take a look at that in a second. Biden is speaking today on stimulus. He'll obviously talk about COVID as well. I'd be shocked if he talks about the impeachment. I think that he's trying to distance himself from that right now. But the story that we're talking about and the stock we're going to take a look at is here. Again, Ark filed to launch a new ETF around exploration of space. So obviously space, SPCE, is one of the stocks that we've been watching pretty heavily in the community. And we have a very specific level that we've been looking to trade in that stock. And as of this morning, it actually popped through that level. And we'll show you what that level is. So you can see the futures here, kind of neutral, up just a little bit. But what we want to get into is actually looking at Virgin Galactic. We've been watching it here when we traded it on this breakout. This was our short-term move, finally cleared that level and punched through, and again failed. And now we're at that level again as of yesterday. But you can see now, because of the news, it's actually trading at 31 all the way up here. So how do you manage this? This is, again, we're going to tie this trade into the trade yesterday in FUBO so that you can really get your trade management dialed in. So we talked about FUBO. We talked about it was only 1 day. So this is a really good illustration here. This is great. Good news, exciting news. 1 day, okay? It was only 1 day, but you still needed, it was 1 day, but it was good news and it popped into our radar. You still needed an entry. So if we take a look at, let's even go down to the hourly chart yesterday and look at the price action from yesterday. The stock was basically selling from the open. So it did not give us confirmation like it did the previous day that caused the stock to be popping up in our radar and getting into our watch list. So remember, putting a stock in your watch list and saying I must trade it tomorrow is not the same thing. You still need an entry signal to manage risk. FUBO started trading backwards yesterday. So what we're going to be looking for to initiate our trade in space today, because it's trading literally off the charts up here in the 30s, 31 right now, is you're going to be fine-tuning your entries now on a shorter time frame to manage risk in a stock that gap. Because just from a practical perspective, using a lot of P's today, it's trading all the way up here. How do you manage your risk? How do you manage your risk in a stock that has gapped up where your normal risk will be within the previous couple of days worth of price action? Well, that means you need to manage that risk on today's price action. You need to manage based on an entry signal intraday within the context of that gap. If you're not sure what that means, I'm going to really make it simple for you. You have these shorter time frames. So for example, here on the hourly candlestick. So if you could visualize this hourly candlestick being a daily candlestick the same way that you would on a normal swing trade, you're then going to use these hourly candlesticks, the 60-minute candlesticks, to time your entries very similar to the way you would look on one of these charts, a daily candlestick, and then look for that entry for a longer term move. So that's only one of many ways, but that's one of the most easy to explain methods that use the hourly candlesticks on a gap to look for an entry. So what is the trade? Well, 31 is already half of the distance to where we've been looking for a profit target up in the 34 area. So that means that the trade right now is less share size and then looking to add after it gets through the level that it has not been able to trade through. I know that's a mouthful, but really, honestly, if you want to be a pro, you want to act like a pro, you want to trade like a pro, it takes a lot more than saying I saw it in a news story yesterday and I want to buy it. These are the things that we teach in the boot camp, is really thinking through, okay, it's rallying. Now what's the trade? Think about the two differences in those sentences. It's not the same. So yesterday, FUBO matched the criteria to start looking at an idea. The story was interesting. It never gave us an entry, even breaking it down the way that we just talked about. Space, we'll see today, SPCE, Virgin Galactic, if it gives us an entry. If it does, fine, we'll start working a position. If it doesn't, if it gaps higher and starts to sell off, we'll just leave it alone. All right, getting into some new ideas today. We're going to keep an eye on the solar stocks. Again, a few of them pulling back. I do like Run, and what's interesting is Run actually, you can see here, just walking it through, pausing above what was previous resistance, bullish gap, and now a 5-day pause. I am really liking this today. JKS, which was the stock that was the most on fire. This is actually one of those situations that we were talking about today where this is kind of the right price. And until it's not the right price anymore, I'm going to leave it alone. So the JKS needs to get above 76 for me personally. So out of those two, I like Run a little better. But I think out of all three of those, I'm really loving this push and a pause and consolidation in ENPH. This is going to be one of the top stocks on my radar today. and SOL triggered a swing trade for us a couple of days ago. Hopefully you took that one as well. We're still sitting in that position for right now. One that I have not traded for a while that has now exploded yesterday. Again, we had a push and a pause. Again, you can see it very clearly here, a push and a pause and a push again. 24 is the level I'm going to be watching. It's exciting that it rallied yesterday, but closed well off the highs. So I'm looking and setting an alert that it needs to be above 24 before I start to look at it again. So again, we talked about it in yesterday's video that alerts are a huge part of an active trader's toolbox, and 24 is the level that I'm going to be watching root today. So if you're going to be keeping an eye on that 24, looking ultimately for the first target of 30 if it gets up there and stays there. Wayfair, really, really interesting setup. Now, here's the thing with Wayfair, and this is looking deeper than just looking at the setup. This is an impressive rally, right? And yesterday it kind of exploded, looked awesome. Today, now reading tape, reading a little bit deeper with less upside potential, maybe $10 in the trade, which is still good. We are now looking to put this into the watch list, looking for a pause, and then looking for the next run to be up to 350 and change. So really, ideally for me personally, I'm looking for the stock to settle in over the next couple of days, and then looking for a $50 run, 50 or so up to this area and beyond. Now, what's interesting is we talk about the bullish echo. The bullish echo is follow through from the last couple of days. So we're going to be looking to day trade this stock if it meets certain criteria, but not looking to start a new swing trade on the stock. Bloom Energy is actually coming out of what we saw, bullish gap, right? 4-day pause, and now what we call well bid. The lower opening today doesn't really affect me at all, because remember, we're trading this, we're not trading the pre-market, at least the way I do things. I like to keep it simple. Next we have Chewy, also called out recently, and again, very similar to what we just talked about in Wayfair. It is now punched through that level. We want to see it pause above 108 and then look for a new trade. It looks like it should do that comfortably. CGC is another one. Really good. Again, hopefully you're starting to train your eye to do this. Bullish gap, pause for 6 days, and now we're looking for follow through. PayPal hit our 244 level that we discussed, I think 2 days ago. Did not initiate the new trade yesterday. Today we're looking for a new swing trade in PayPal. ABBV is one that I have not traded recently. I love this breakout. Looking for a spot to manage a new swing trade starting today. Uber and Lyft, two stocks that we keep mentioning. Again, this is the power of having a watch list and you set alerts. Uber finally got above the level we're watching, and Lyft, we had a alert set for 50, got above 50, did not follow through. So we're going to keep an eye on that new trade today as well. And one that we're going to watch that has been in our watch list and very, very actively traded is Triple D, 3D Systems, and has given us a couple of days, if not 3 days, of pausing after those two explosive days, and quite honestly, pretty easy trading. We're again waiting for the tape to tell us when it's moving in our direction, when we can manage risk, and the next target. We're actually going to be looking for 30 as the next target if the stock wakes up and finds buyers again. So I just want to really get to the point where we are constantly discussing proper trade management, because again, I just can't stress this enough. There's a difference between finding an idea that hits a scanner versus finding an idea that hits a scanner and is a good trade right now. So we purposely looked at a couple of ideas today where you might have seen some of those stocks in a scanner, but the odds of following through over the next 3 to 5 days are smaller, versus if that same stock that has super obvious order flow right now and what many people might call short-term momentum, if it has good order flow and short-term momentum, what are the odds of, if you put a trade on today, of it pulling back and pausing, or what are the odds of putting on a trade right now and it's screaming and continuing in that direction? More often than not, when a stock has that kind of momentum, when the stock is what we call well bid for 4, 5, 6 days, if you're looking to buy it on the 6th or the 7th day, the odds of making money, the odds of following through decrease dramatically. So that's why we purposely looked at some stocks that are ready to go now and some stocks that should probably be pausing and then looking for the next trade that makes sense from here's what we need to risk and here's what we could make on the trade. So a lot to unpack today, but this is what makes trading so fun and how we can have something to talk about every day, because there's so much going on and you can keep peeling back the onion layers and deeper and deeper and deeper into real trade management. And that's really where the magic is, really. Quite honestly, anybody could run a scan. but really digging deeper into trade management and what to do after you enter, and should you even enter. Again, I'll just say that's where the magic happens, and that's really where we live as professionals. We want to find ideas that make money and avoid the ones that have a low probability of following through. So love to talk to everybody about this every single day. If you have any questions about the stocks that we talked about today, just leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. Have a great day, everyone.